All right, let's talk about one of the most important, and honestly, most overlooked systems on your motorcycle, the suspension. It's this incredible, unseen force that completely defines how your bike feels, how it handles, and how it connects you to the road. So, let me just ask you a quick question. If you wanted to make your bike handle better, go faster, be safer, what's the first thing you'd upgrade? Most people jump straight to the engine, for more power. Or maybe the tires for more grip. And yeah, those are good answers, but they might not be the best answer.
The real secret, the true unsung hero of your ride, is probably the one part you barely ever give a second thought to. That system of springs and shocks holding you up off the pavement.
To really get why it's so crucial, we need to dig into what suspension actually does. And trust me, it's about way more than just smoothing out bumps so you have a comfy ride.
I mean, on paper, the definition is pretty straightforward. Suspension is just the stuff, the springs, the shocks, the linkages that connects the frame of your bike to the wheels. Simple, right? But what it does is incredibly complex.
It really boils down to two core jobs. The first one is what everybody thinks of, absorbing bumps for comfort and stability. But the second one, that's the real magic. It's actively keeping your tires pressed into the ground to maintain grip. Because think about it. Without consistent grip, you have no control. You can't accelerate, you can't brake, you can't turn. That makes your suspension one of the most important safety systems on the entire bike.
A really great way to picture this is to think about a runner's legs. As they run, their knees are constantly bending and flexing. They're absorbing all that impact from the ground, sure, but they're also keeping their whole body stable and driving them forward. Your bike's suspension is doing that exact same dance for your tires every second you're riding.
So, how is this whole system actually built? Let's take a look at the most common designs you'll find out there, starting with what's happening at the front of the bike. Up front, you're almost always going to see telescopic forks, but they come in two main flavors. You've got your conventional forks, they're simpler, cheaper to make, and you see them on a lot of entry-level bikes. But then you have upside-down forks, or USD forks. The big reason performance bikes use these comes down to something called unsprung weight. That's basically everything that moves up and down with the wheel, the tire, the brake caliper, the lower part of the fork. By flipping the fork upside down, the heaviest parts are attached to the bike's frame, not the wheel. This makes the wheel assembly lighter so it can react to bumps way faster and stay glued to the road.
And it's a similar story out back. For years, the classic twin shock setup was the standard. You still see it on cruisers and retro bikes. But today, most modern bikes use a monoshock. Now, the big deal here isn't just having one shock instead of two. The real genius is that the single shock allows engineers to use these complex linkages, these clever systems of levers, and those linkages create what's called a progressive action. The suspension actually gets stiffer the more it compresses, so it's soft for small bumps, but firms up to handle the big heads without bottoming out. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's a USD fork, a conventional one, a monoshock, or twin shocks. The real work inside is always done by two essential components working together as a team.
And this is the dynamic duo right here. You've got the spring. The spring is the muscle. Its job is to hold up the weight of the bike and you, and to absorb the initial shock from a bump. But if you only had a spring, your bike would just bounce up and down forever like a pogo stick. That's where its partner, the damper, comes in. The damper is the brains of the operation. Its only job is to control the spring's movement, taking all that chaotic bounce energy and turning it into tiny amounts of heat. It's what keeps the tire from bouncing off the ground. Okay, so how do we tune this team? It all starts with something called preload. All preload does is add a little bit of tension to the spring before you even get on the bike. Its one and only job is to set the ride height, what we call sag, so that the suspension sits in the perfect part of its travel range, ready to both compress over bumps and extend down into dips in the road. Next up is compression damping. This basically controls how fast the suspension is allowed to squish down when you hit a bump. If you have too little compression, the suspension will feel all mushy and blow through its travel on big hits. But if you have too much, the ride gets harsh, and you'll feel every single tiny crack in the pavement.
And finally, and you could argue this is the most important one, we have rebound damping. This controls how fast the spring is allowed to push the wheel back out after it's been compressed. If you don't have enough rebound control, that pogo stick effect comes right back, and the wheel will literally bounce off the pavement, losing all grip. This is the setting that tames the spring and keeps that tire firmly planted on the asphalt.
Okay, I know, that's a lot of theory. But why does any of this actually matter to you, the rider? Well, here's the kicker.
The suspension on your bike was set up at the factory for some average rider, and odds are you're not that person.
You know, getting a good basic setup isn't some kind of mysterious black magic. It's actually a pretty simple process. First, you set the preload to get the right sag for your specific weight. Then, you start adjusting the damping to get the feel you want. And here's the most important part. You go for a ride. You feel what the bike is doing, you come back and you fine-tune it. It's a conversation between you and your machine.
And that's the ultimate goal, right? Because a motorcycle with properly set up suspension isn't just more comfortable, and it isn't just faster through the corners, it communicates with you. It becomes predictable, stable, and it gives you this incredible sense of confidence. It really does become a true extension of you.
So the next time you look at your bike, don't just see the shiny paint and the big engine. Look at that system connecting you to the road. And just ask yourself this: what if a few small adjustments, a few clicks here and there, could totally transform your relationship with your motorcycle? Because the answer is almost certainly yes.